Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Align, where we help you align with your true self, others, and your desired outcome to live your best life. Today is a very dear topic for both Dan and I, and it's the spirituality of money management. So, Dan, the reason why I wanted you to come on board is even when we first met, the first time we had breakfast, I was very shocked by how spiritual, how you really saw the human side of money management. And like we talked about things like spirituality, meditation, mindset. And I felt like we were very aligned that while we're in the world of finance, we're not this robotic, typical, stereotypical profile of someone to be in finance.
Yes.
So this topic, and as we got to know each other better, I was like, oh my God, he speaks my language. I'm not a weirdo. This is great. And we'll discuss more later, but you also have your own blog. You also have your own video series that I feel is super helpful for people trying to get their hands and bearings around finance, whether it be personal or even investing on behalf of others. So definitely excited to have you. And I do want to give the audience a little bit of background. So you've been managing money for A-listers, celebs, founders, CEOs, and that's just been your sweet spot. I personally think it's because you have the human side of it and you're not just this kind of robotic money-making machine and people can relate to you. So very excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. So are we ready to dive right in?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's do this. So first is obviously we want to talk about your journey, right? You've expressed to me that you came very humble backgrounds and you pretty much built your own business from nothing, right? So how did you develop this spiritual view of money? Why is that important to you? Walk us through your journey.
Well, I mean, my first experience with money was when as early as 9 years old. Um, I actually grew up on Long Island, and my family had moved to East Hampton when I was 4 years old. Uh, Riverhead at the time, I've been to Riverhead a long time, but back then, Riverhead was pretty rough. A lot of gang violence and drug dealing, and you know, they decided as young parents they didn't want their kids growing up in Riverhead. So they actually they didn't know where they were going to go. They met a friend who knew a friend who lived in East Hampton. They had never heard of it. They moved out there. They're like, this is exactly where you want to be. It's quiet. It's country. There's nothing but potato fields. There's tons of fishing because my dad loves to fish. So when I talk about East Hampton, I'm not talking about, the Hamptons that people go to on the weekend. I'm talking about the rural country, Long Island, easygoing lifestyle, if you will. However, at the time, there was a growing affluence in East Hampton. It was just beginning. And so I found myself, I would say around 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids, they wore cool clothes. They wore like Izod Lacoste shirts with the alligator and
Oh yeah.
jeans and
Prep
Stan. They wore some cool stuff, and I was wearing stuff from Wilco. Wilco back in the day used to be like this discount retailer,
Yeah.
so to speak. And that's where we used to buy all of our clothes. And then one day I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I'm entering the 3rd grade. I really want to wear some nice clothes for school. I feel like I'm not fitting in. And he was like, well, I don't have a budget for that. But I have an idea. And I was like, okay. What's your idea? He said, you could start a business. So I'm thinking like a business, you mean like sell lemonade or something? He said, no, actually I was thinking you could sell cucumbers and tomatoes. Because we had like a small farm and we used to grow cucumbers, tomatoes, corn, rhubarb. Everything. Squash. It's crazy. So basically, that's what I did. I started selling cucumbers, tomatoes, and I actually did really well. Obviously, I was 9 years old, so I wasn't allowed to go anywhere and spend money.
Right.
So all I was saving it, and what's funny is that you see a lot of kids out there with lemonade stands, and they sit there, with their lemonade, and pour lemonade for people that drive by. But my parents were so protective. They said, we're going to make this self-serve because I don't want you like outside,
Yeah.
look at the strangers. So we have this self-serve farm stand, and I remember I used to just watch the cars drive by the house and put their coins in the can. I used to love the sound of the can and the points of the can.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that ka-ching sound, on the cash register. That's what it was. The coins hitting the can was so cool. It's like, oh my gosh, we're actually selling things, we're actually making money. So, so lo and behold, I was not able to make enough money to buy the Izod clothes, but I did make enough to go to Sears, so I could buy like tough skin jeans and
Nice.
and some other things that kind of upgraded from where I was. And I was grateful for that.
Mm.
But I found that all through growing up there, I always felt that people had more than me,
Mm.
and it made me feel uncomfortable. And I think, you know, maybe it's just me, but I felt like, they made me feel like I had less, like it was bad.
Yeah.
I don't think that was intentional. That's just the way it is when you're living in an affluent area, but yet you have humble needs. You know, people look at you differently. Maybe they feel sorry for you, or they don't talk to you, or whatever it is. Now, granted, I had friends, and I had a great childhood, but that was always in the back of my mind that if I just had more money, I could afford to do the things that I want, so I could fit in, so I could be accepted. And that really became my mindset through high school, through college, even as a young adult, working in investment banking, making six figures right out of college. I mean, you know, to me, having money meant status. It meant that I was doing something great in my life.
Mm.
And, you know, but it was totally wrong. It was totally wrong because, you know, so I grew up asking for things as a child, because that's what children do. They ask for things from their parents, and they would say stuff like, money doesn't grow on trees, type of thing. Or, you know, because we just tell me just get a job and work for it. And so when you think about that, like you're thinking, what does that mean money doesn't grow on trees? Does that mean that money is scarce? Or does that mean that once I have money, I should just do what I want with it because you only live once? So this is kind of like an extreme. So right in the middle is that sort of financial wellness road, you know, learning how to make smart decisions, learning how you came to know what money means to you, what your weaknesses with money. So it's interesting because I think one of the things, reason why I am a financial advisor, I believe, is because I've made a lot of mistakes with money. I've had a lot and I've had little, and I've learned to work with both. And I see clients, you know, do that as well. So, that's how I sort of developed this financial wellness practice within my advisory firm.
Mm, I love that. Definitely resonate with all those thoughts. I feel my parents and my grandparents, Chinese background, right? Very conservative, always said, Jessica, you gotta save. Money still doesn't grow on trees. You need to be grateful for everything you have, right? And I think it was all warranted, but there was a part of me that grew up that money is scarce. And even if we were doing well and we were very comfortable, we were, middle of the road, family were entrepreneurs. I just always in the back of my mind felt like at some way money needs to be hard earned and you have to hustle for money, right? It wasn't until it clicked to me that, actually we live, especially in our country, in a world of abundance. And it actually hurts me to think that money is limited, right? Because then to your point, you become very extreme in the way you handle money. And you think it's short term. I'm not going to have this for a long time. And you don't think about how to grow it, how to invest it. So I 100% resonate with you on that. I think parents mean well when they kind of try to teach you, be grateful for things. But as you grow up, it's like learning to change the mindset of money that you actually track more money, versus if you think it's scarce, you're repelling it. But that's my kind of my personal journey with money management, so to speak. So let's talk a little bit more about the spiritual side. Because you have a very holistic way of thinking about it, and we'll kind of walk through some of your, call it like your 5 pillars, how to manage money, etc. When did you kind of build this spirituality, or what does spirituality in money management mean to you? Why is it important?
Because I think a lot of people, you grow up with a mindset. I mean, it's not just a mindset around money, it's a mindset around everything.
Yeah.
Relationships. I think a mindset, when I think of a mindset, I think of several different buckets. There's the relationship bucket, there's the work ethic bucket, and then there's the financial bucket, the money mindset. So, um, how do I develop a spiritual? Well, so I went through a divorce, and I had, after my divorce, I had absolutely nothing. It forced me to think about my life and who I was and what I was doing. You know, how could I have nothing? You know,
Right.
show for my hard work and then be in the middle of this divorce. I felt like, I literally felt hopeless. You know, and you know, it was in that low moment where I came up with the 5 pillars that helped me achieve sort of this new mindset that, because here's the thing, Jessica. So it's like these days when you hear about financial wellness, it's more like a hashtag, something that's trending, and people know that they have issues with money. So they say, okay, you have an issue with money, there's an app for that. You know, there's like an app for your issue. Oh, your issue is budgeting. You're not really budgeting well, or you're not thinking about retirement in the right way. Just you know, open up a 401k or IRA. And again, those are well-intentioned recommendations, but financial wellness goes beyond income and expenses and dollars and cents. It really goes to the heart of how you see money, why we do the things that we do.
Mhm.
And so I had to reevaluate my weaknesses around money. Like, for example, like I'm growing up as a young man, I did not save well. And that probably sounds weird coming from a financial advisor, but I did not save well. But I did like investing money. I love taking risk. I
Mhm.
love watching the markets go up and down. Um, and I still do that today. I still love it. I still do it with my client. But if I had a choice between a savings account and an investment account, I probably wouldn't put it in a savings account. And what I learned is that that's because I didn't want my money just sitting there,
Yeah.
earning, a 0.5% of interest. And I learned that was basically what I learned from that is how impatient I was about reaching my goals.
Mhm.
And that impatience is what causes rash decisions. It causes emotional decisions
Mhm.
and how we spend our money or how we save our money, you know? So, so basically I went through I hit rock bottom, and that's when I started to make some changes. I
Mhm.
started to look inside instead of outside. One of the things too, I was comparing myself to people. So that factored into my decision, you know, this whole this whole concept of comparison, keeping up with the Joneses, you know, trying to be impressive to somebody, trying to please others, buying this round of drinks or buying dinner here, or you know, let's get a group of people and let's go to the Hamptons for the summer, let's put in our extra cap, all that stuff, it adds up. And, you know, if you trip up, you know, and you have no savings and you spend all your money trying to have fun, trying to impress people, you know, you're stuck.
Yeah.
And you have to reevaluate who you are, why you do things. It's just, but you know what? I'm grateful that that
Mhm.
happened because I know it could have gone the other way. I know a lot. I know people. They turn to alcohol, turn to drugs, things, body, family. That didn't happen for me. In fact, I can tell you that I became a Christian actually 18 years ago,
Mm.
and I started studying the Bible, and I started learning about God and learning about how I was created and why I'm here. And that was really the foundation of how I built my practice, how I've come to have this relationship with money on a spiritual level. Um, you know, so my company is not a Christian company or anything, but I do I do add a spiritual element to my recommendation. It's funny because I have clients who don't know my faith. They'll always introduce me to their friends as their spiritual advisor, spiritual advisor. You know, because I guess, and you know what? That's cool because that means that whatever I'm doing is working. It's
Yeah.
helping them. So, another thing that I do in my practice that my clients are probably going to hear now, but I actually pray for my clients every Wednesday morning at 5 a.m.
Mm.
If I talk to my clients during the week, I make a list of all the stuff that they're going through, and I just like pray over them. You know, pray for revenue in their business, pray for a deal go through, you know, or pray for a good meeting. Maybe they have a meeting, or pray for some sort of revelation, of a relationship that they're involved in. Um, whatever it is that they've talked to me about. When I'm taking notes, I'm taking the financial notes, obviously, but I'm also taking notes about things to be praying about. And what's cool is that in the next week or two, I'll get a call back and they'll say, Dan, like, you're not going to believe it. But remember that person I was telling you about the other day about that piece of business they called? You know, you're not going to believe like what happened. So the prayers are getting answered. It's so cool. So I don't know. I probably get people calling me to pray for them, which is fine.
I know
that's
that's
something that that's something that I just do. So that's kind of how I do the spiritual part of money, and also too about being impatient. A lot of times, so I was the kind of person where I would say, you know what, when I get my bonus, I'm definitely going to like invest it in my 401k. Or, when I get that contract and I get that advance, I'm absolutely going to like invest. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then what happens, the money comes and it's like you always spent it before it got there. You totally change your whole thing. The intentions are good, but it's a mindset. You have to break the mindset. So once you get behind the reason why we do things, you start to change. You start to you start to really turn the page and do something different. So I learned that actually something that's actually spiritual is the idea of steadily plotting, not even just waiting for a big lump sum, but just making commitment. I mean, and this sounds silly. It doesn't matter how much money you make, but if you just commit like a certain amount of money every week, it could be literally could be as small as like $10, whatever it is, and
yeah.
just invest it. You know, we are open up an E-Trade account or something. I mean, I know there's other like robo advisors, but one of the things that I tell people is that find the company that you love. A lot of people have iPhones. If you love Apple, you love your iPhone, invest in Apple. What is Apple at now? A couple $100 a share? I mean, save $200 and just buy a share. You do it on E-Trade or Fidelity or somewhere. Charles Schwab. I mean, you could do, and then watch it for a while, and then try to do it again. You just got to build steadily. Things don't happen overnight,
Mm.
and that was me, and that's probably a lot of people. So
Mm.
I'm fine.
Yeah. I completely hear you and resonate with you where it's so much more important to go deeper to say, why do you spend on the things that you spend? Why do you have this relationship with money? Because ultimately, we're all human. We're chasing after a feeling. When you buy something, like if you're buying, let's say, a brand name bag or shoes, right? You're chasing after that approval. You want to be like, fitting in. You want to be able to, or stand out from a crowd, right? Like, ask yourself, what is the feeling you're chasing? And then if the feeling is significance, right? Or yeah, significance, what's another and more deeper way for you to get that than just buying these bags and buying these shoes left and right, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I love designer clothing. I love all that. But ask yourself, are there other ways to sustain and give yourself that feeling? And it's actually going to last longer. Because how many times have you bought that Rolex, okay? And maybe like week 2, you're like, it's cool. That's it. Versus, and we'll kind of dig a little deeper later, but like when you've done things from the heart, whether it be, helping someone with their business, whether it's for profit or not, right? That feeling and that satisfaction of significance lasts so much longer, right? So I'm 100% with you. I really encourage people to think very deeply when you buy things or you do things or you invest in things, what's the feeling you're chasing? And ask yourself, that feeling you want, is this the best way to get it? Because oftentimes it's not. You actually make more money because you're giving value, and you start a business or you do something, you're giving back, you're getting paid for that value, versus you buying things as an expense. That is very superficial and it won't last as long, the impact.
I have a funny story about that.
Go for it.
I used to work at Bad Boy Entertainment. I used to be head of production, and I reported directly to Puffy.
Yeah.
And so my job was to report. My job was to manage the reporting budget.
Okay.
And internal financial control of the company. And so he was working on a project, and he invited me to a meeting with one of the artists that we were working with on this project. And, I was trying to figure out what to wear for this meeting. And, I left Wall Street and went to work at Bad Boy, my income dropped like 20 times. 20 times. It was crazy. But, back in those days, in the mid 90s, people wore these Versace shirts and jeans. And so I said, you know what? Because that's what my boss wore. So I wanted to wear the same thing. I went to the Versace store like the day before, and I bought a pair of jeans and I bought a shirt, Versace shirt. And it was like 3 paychecks. And I bought it anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be with the CEO of the company, and I wanted to look great and be impressive, like I was fitting in, like clothes was going to make me fit in. So I made a decision to spend way more than I could afford on clothes, and I only wore them once, Jessica. And in fact, I just threw away my Versace jeans like 3 months ago because I paid so much for them and they were so nice, but I could not let them go because I paid so much money for these jeans, and that's what I mean. Like, so you make a financial decision, it makes sense. Yes, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be impressive and make your company feel proud and be able to be with your boss and be impressive, but execution is so key. Sometimes emotions and our mindset gets in the way.
Yeah.
So
what? Actually, perfect segue. So the execution piece, the mindset piece. Let's talk about law of attraction. So you and I actually very much agree on the theory behind it, how it works. We have issues with the way people interpret execution. So let's talk about law of attraction and how that applies to money and attracting abundance, attracting money. Want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so first of all, what I think is great about the law of attraction is that people, if they feel if they're not purposeful, having a goal in mind is great. Mm-hmm. Able to visualize your goal and knowing as many details as possible is a really good thing. I mean, even when I'm in a discovery meeting with clients, when I'm meeting them for the first time, I'm asking them to describe what retirement looks like. What are you doing on a daily basis? What are you buying? Are you traveling? Are you playing golf? What are you doing with your time? Where are you living? How much do you want to spend? So as as detailed as possible, I think to have that goal is really important. The thing is that we talked about this. The issue I have with law of attraction is that it's all about the destination, but it totally discounts the journey.
Yep.
It's just that, like, if you're thinking about if you think about the destination long enough, the outcome will give you what you want. And that's not true. A lot of people are very disappointed. I
Mhm.
mean, sure, there's coincidences and things are serendipitous, and that's a cool thing. But there is no practice that says if you visualize your goal, at least spiritually, that you visualize your goal and that somehow it's going to happen, or somehow if you say it, it's going to happen. There's got to be a partnership where if you know where you're going, you have to also visualize the steps to get there. You know, I mean, it's funny because I just lost 30 pounds, by the way, and my suit
Congrats.
feels so loose. I feel like a little kid in the suit,
Oh my God.
which is great. But I said I wanted to lose 30 pounds. I want to have the energy to play with my kids
Yep.
and, be able to do things, hang out with my wife, go on trips, be active together. And I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to lose 30 pounds.
Mhm.
I could visualize myself having more energy, having more strength, having an elevated mood, having more focus. I could visualize that, but I also had to be compliant. I had to say, you know what? I'm going to do dumbbells 2 times a week. I'm going to do cardio, you know, twice a week, and I'm going to do yoga once a week. And then here's the thing: what if I do that and it doesn't work? That's the thing. I put a plan together, it doesn't work. So now I'm thinking, okay, this is not going to work. This is not for me. You know what I mean? But that's the other part of it. Like you have to pivot.
Yes.
So even if you have to do something different. Maybe your body is eating something that you shouldn't be eating. Maybe it's your diet. Maybe it's eating something in your diet. You know, for me, I eat a lot of rice and pasta. I had to cut that down. You know, I went vegan for a while. I pivoted a lot.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like so you have to visualize not only your the steps to get there, you also have to visualize, you know, pivoting if you have to. Okay, this is my plan, but what if it doesn't work? Okay, I can try this, and then give yourself a time limit. Okay, I'm going to try this for 2 weeks. You know, especially if you're losing weight and working out. I mean, if you try anything for 2 weeks, if you don't see results, that means you got to try something else. If something was missing, or something you're doing is hurting you. So visualizing the execution and visualizing the pivot if necessary.
Mm, yeah, 100% with you. I am a huge believer in law of attraction or manifestation because it works like a charm. But to your exact point, law of attraction or manifestation, it's just visually planning. Like that's how I see it. Like I'm just visually planning in detail, to your point, of what my outcome and the journey and the outcome, right? But just like what you mentioned, one thing I would really advise people is you could be so certain of your outcome, and you should be, right? You need to be very flexible in the journey because oftentimes your mind, a human mind, is so limited based on what you've seen as possible, what you've heard as possible. That's kind of it, right? There's so much more in this universe that there's so many other ways, there's so many parallel ways to get there that you don't know about. So you have to be so open to it. And there's so many times when like I visualize the outcome and the journey, and the journey ended up being completely different, but I still got there. And the journey ended up being way better because I was open. And the outcome was even way more magnified, right? So I'm
Mhm.
100% with you. I think it's in your journey, you got to like read, get the feedback, like what's working, what's not working, right? And be humble enough to say, okay, maybe what I visualized in the journey may not be good enough to get where I want to be. Let's change. Let's pivot. And the biggest thing I always say to people is think about when you order food at a restaurant, right? You don't check every 2 seconds with the waiter, is it coming? Hi, is my food coming? You just trust it's coming, right? Your only job when you manifest or you visualize is trust in your vision and have faith in it and act. Stop checking, oh, it's not here yet. It's not here. It will come in divine timing when you're prepared. But you better be prepared when it's here, otherwise you're going to miss it. So,
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
right, you just got to trust, have the faith, but do the work. Like nothing's going to drop. A lot of my girlfriends like joke around. They're like, oh, Jess, I tried law of attraction. I want to manifest my dream man. He'll drop from the sky. I'm like, no, honey, you need to go where he's hanging out. You need to go, like, you need to be thoughtful of what is your desirable man doing on a day-to-day basis, and how do you increase your odds of reaching him, right? You can't sit at home and like, oh, Prince Charming is going to drop from the sky. Like that is not manifestation. So 100% with you on that for sure. I want to be mindful of, let's see, we have a couple minutes left. I do want to highlight, for example, let's see. Yeah. So one thing that you and I talked about is the reason why you started your own business, you kind of went off and created your own brand, is that you wanted your business to be more personal. And when you work for obviously a firm, there's kind of limitations what you can say and can say. And I think the beautiful thing of you being an entrepreneur and having your own business is you can build like resources, blogs, and kind of share very openly with an open heart how you want things to be and how you think people can thrive and be successful. So I think there's 3 key resources I definitely want to share with the community that I thought, wow, you do a really good job. First is how to achieve money in crisis. And you kind of talked about this, you know, how you built it when you were after your divorce. There's the 5 pillars, a founder's playbook. So as a founder yourself, you've gone through a lot of pitfalls, you've gone through a lot of successes, and you kind of walk people through this in the video series. And lastly, which I think is so important, is you've actually put together financial resources or kind of videos and mindsets to help people get started or continue on and kind of have best practices. So I want to give you the opportunity, kind of just talk to people a little bit more about these 3. You can talk about one of them, but what are you trying to do with these kind of resources, and what do you want the people to take away from it?
So one of the things I did in the last couple of years is I reoriented my business by asking the question, who am I serving and who am I serving the best and why? And I realized that they were mostly founders and CEOs of companies,
Mm-hmm.
people who really needed someone that they could sound off on all their ideas and all their situations and get feedback. And I've been fortunate enough to work in investment banking, venture capital, private equity, corporate finance, the music business, and then wealth management. So, and I've worked with the top companies, some of the brightest CEOs to ever run some of these companies, whether it's restructuring or bankruptcy workouts or IPOs or mergers, acquisitions, seed rounds, startup rounds of funding, working with investors. So there isn't that one case study that I could not address with any founder at any level.
Mm.
And I found that to be very unique because a lot of my friends who are advisors, a lot of them come from different industries. And financial advisory is like a second or third career. And, you know, they're coming from nonprofit or politics or commercial real estate or law. So, you know, a lot of them want to have their own businesses and they felt that being a financial advisor was something worth pursuing. And obviously, you know, it's a great business. And a lot of people are successful coming from other industries. But I'm really one of the few that can really speak to an entrepreneur's sort of life cycle of growth, startup all the way to exit, you know, from building traction to building scale to building valuation in your company, and sort of bridging the two, bridging your business goals with your personal financial goals.
Mm.
You know, so so I thought that was really unique. And also, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My great great grandmother was a midwife in Virginia. She used to deliver all the babies in western part of Virginia, Piedmont region of Virginia. And then her son, my great grandfather, he owned livestock and had a timber mill with his brother and grew tobacco. And then my dad, he had a landscaping company. He was also a land speculator, was into real estate. My mom had a catering business. That's a cool story. I can tell you later. But you know, so there's so entrepreneurship is in our blood. It's in our family line. And so, and then I started my first business at age 9. You know, my dad was my first investor, if you will. And in my videos, in my video, Founder's Playbook, I talk about anecdotally about how I built scale as a tomato cucumber salesperson.
Mm.
You know, so you know, that series actually premieres February 15th.
Perfect.
So my first few episodes, I talk about, I share anecdotally about how to look at your ideas and how to execute them.
Mm.
And I learned that as 9 years old.
Right.
You know, about the most simplest form. You know, when you're not complicated by life and relationships and life's worries. You know, you get that pure, simplistic view of things.
Yeah. 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 Well, Dan, I do want to thank you so much for obviously your time today, but most importantly, just to show up the way that you show up to the world. And you're really able to marry the spirituality with money management. And I think it's so unique, right? Like, I think to have a healthy, successful life, you can't have just one or the other. So thank you. And I'm sure your clients adore you for kind of getting them where they need to be. I think my final question for you, and I ask everyone this at the end, is what is the unique gift that you have that you're sharing with the world?
I believe my gift is to encourage and to, well, you know, at the end of each video that I do, I always say, be encouraged and be blessed. I really mean that. Like my gift is to encourage people. And, you know, for many, many years, as a young man, especially when you're starting businesses, and I've actually started several businesses over the years, you always felt alone. You didn't have anyone you could talk to, that you could sound off on things. And sometimes you got advice, it was conflicting and wasn't clear, you know, but I always really appreciated the encouragement. People say a kind word, you know, simple, like you're gonna make it, you know, you've got what it takes.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be saying it. I say it because I mean it,
Yeah.
you know, absolutely. So I believe that anyone that I work with, um, I don't believe I don't believe it's a coincidence. I believe it's serendipitous that if we work together, that means that it's my role to encourage that person,
Mm.
to spur them on, let them know that their ideas are not bad ideas. You
Yeah.
know, that even if there's something in execution that you can do, I will help you. I will push you. I will encourage you. I'll use whatever tools, relations I have to help a client.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate it. See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Thanks so much, Jessica.